back to the Coin Drop Podcast. This is episode number 91. And joining me once again, you know him, you love him, Tim Vargo. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm about to go to Arkansas.
Ooh.
Probably for the majority of the week. I'll have to travel back on Tuesday and Thursday at the very least, but they're going to give me a truck and I'm going to go up there to help with, I think it's a sawmills shutdown. So I'll be working lots of extra hours and yeah.
Okay. It's a bit of a drive from you out in Louisiana, right?
I'm in about as far north west as you can go in Shreveport in Louisiana. And so it's like an hour and a half.
Oh, okay. So not terrible.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, I know last time you dropped the bomb on me that you were playing some Dragon Age. Have you played anything this week?
Yeah, I probably played maybe 6 hours worth this week or so.
Okay, all right.
I got a little bit farther in. I still haven't met any new characters yet, but I am in what's Nev's city.
Okay.
I'm in that city at the moment.
Yeah. That's the Teventer Imperium. That's whatever the fuck it's. Yeah. But yeah, Nev's. Honestly, I liked Nev as a character, but I also kind of didn't like her. I don't know. I've got a lot of mixed feelings about that game. We've talked about it enough.
Yeah.
I've been working my way through Final Fantasy 16. I am 4 bosses away, from my understanding, from beating the base game. But I'm also, there's a lot of side content. I'm trying to catch up on the hunts and catch up on crafting and stuff like that. I'm working my way through some of the trophies for that. That's kind of what I've been doing. I also just finished finals, so I'm officially on spring break for the next 2 weeks. Perfect timing for Assassin's Creed Shadows. Looking forward to that dropping in a couple of days. If you hear my dog in the background, I apologize. He's wandering over here to sniff at my garbage.
I can't hear him.
Good. Hopefully the audience can't either. So just to give you guys a little bit of a heads up again, just to go over this as we always do, we have a Patreon side. It's extra content over there. We talk about upcoming games. You get the podcast a day early. A couple extra bonuses over there. It's $3 a month. Patreon.com/CoinDropPod. Some good stuff. Helps support the show. Helps us continue to do this. So, less than cup of coffee. Even like a black coffee like me, I think is like $3.50 is what I paid on campus to get a coffee. So like that. Yeah, so like it's cheaper than an actual just black cup of coffee. It's not a whole lot of money, but it does help. Every penny of it helps. That being said, some other quick things to go over. We are doing our monthly game stream next week, and as of recording right now, I think we're playing Helldivers 2 again. I'll have to review that, and I will add that in here. I'll give it to Mike so he can cut that in here in the preamble to let you know, because that's I didn't look at that. I should have looked at that, and I didn't look at that. But we'll be playing whatever game was voted on. So there you go. I will also be going on that trip for the last week of the month, which is why we're moving that forward. But we will still be doing a recorded podcast episode on that weekend, and you will not want to miss that episode. I'm going to say this again. You do not want to miss that episode. We have actually 2 big announcements for you guys that episode. So that Tuesday, the Tuesday after next weekend, which what day is that? That would be the Tuesday would be the 1st of April for our patrons, and for the rest of you public listeners, the 2nd of April. You want to make sure you catch that episode early. Watch it early. Watch it when it drops, because you're going to want to. That's all I'm going to say. There's stuff that's being announced. You're going to want to know. I think I've said that enough times, but I'm going to say it one more time. Watch the episode Tuesday and Wednesday when it drops, because you're going to want to know. All right. Okay. That being said, let's talk about our first main topic tonight. So, word of caution. How do I even start this? One of the listeners has brought a game to my attention. And in fact, he actually opened the conversation when I was in class, when we were finishing up our classes, with, "I bet I know a game you've never heard of." I was like, "Ooh, that's a dangerous comment." Now you got my interest, like immediately. Like I like hearing about things I don't know about. And you know what? He was right. He told me about a game. And sometimes when you tell podcasters about games that talk about video games and analyze video games, it's a good thing, and sometimes it's not a good thing. So for you, who I'm not going to name on the podcast because I don't like to drop names of our listeners other than our patrons because they, great people, but not saying that you're not great. Anyways, we're going to talk about this game called Darkfall, Rise of Agon. And he brought this game to my attention, and it's kind of got an interesting past, this game. So this game actually started development in 2001.
You can tell.
Yes, it's very clear graphically that this is an old game. So this game had a very interesting development launch, and honestly, I have to, with what I've read about the development process of this game and where it's at now, what it's going to come out, because what you're seeing on screen, this isn't available yet. It is and it isn't. It's going into early access sometime this year, but okay, we're going to just start with this. This game launched in 2009 after 9 years of rough development history. They tried to launch a beta early in their development, had to pull back, weren't able to provide to their audience. It launched in 2009 officially, the original Darkfall, and it closed 3 years later in 2012. Completely folded. It was unprofitable. They could not maintain the game. And it had a very interesting take on, at that time, what was the modern MMO style. Now, if you're too young to remember, back in the early 2000s, MMOs were relatively new. The idea was basically, how do we take pen and paper tabletop RPGs and turn them into a video game? And that's kind of where the early MMOs started. And so you had things like class system, like levels and things like that. Well, Darkfall went against the mold there and went with a skill-based, progression-based system that was entirely open world and PvP, meaning you could lose everything at any moment because somebody decided to gank you, which for some people, they like that. It's not really my thing and is kind of an immediate turnoff to me personally, but some people really like that.
Although, isn't that how EverQuest 1 was?
EverQuest 1 had PvP servers, but it also had PvE servers. This is, from my understanding, this launched as only PvP. It had PvE elements as well, obviously, but at any point, somebody could just come up and kill you after you were in a rough fight, right?
Yeah, sure.
There were, in fact, 3 different factions, however, and 6 different races. So there was a morality system that they had actually implemented that made it so if you still had a quote unquote team, right? So like if you're an orc, you're not going to kill other orcs because it's going to reduce your morality system. You're actually going to lose access to towns, and like guards will start to attack you that are of that faction kind of thing. So they did a good job at balancing it in a sense of like consequences for just being an outright murder hobo. So you can't just kill everybody. There's factions, more or less. And keep in mind, guys, I never played this game. I've only done the research on this, so I might be speaking out of turn on some of this, but we're going to just kind of move through this kind of quickly. There was no class system. It was an unrestricted PvP, meaning you could kill anybody at any time, anywhere, and take all of their shit, literally including their mounts. If they jumped off a mount and went in a building, you could just run up and fucking GTA that shit and take off. Wild. Fucking wild.
It sounds like it's going to be anarchy.
But that's,
there's going to have to start being a policing system somehow.
Kind of what I thought, and I again never played the game. From everybody that they talked to in their little devlog thing, it seems like a lot of people really enjoyed it, but it seems really chaotic from the outside looking in. There was also
the only thing I can think of is, like I said, there's basically going to have to be some sort of police system where basically people are going to become the police, and they'll literally become the police. They'll start doing investigations. They'll kill people. I doubt you'd be able to capture them. I doubt you'd be able to capture them and jail them, but maybe.
Who knows?
Because there is a soft form of building, right?
Yeah.
So maybe they'll be able to do that. And how that's all going to work will be. I mean, it's definitely interesting.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that sounds like another job.
It's weird, yeah. And honestly, when I was watching the video on Steam, there's an 18-minute long interview, a lot of what they were saying felt like comments from people who played early EverQuest. Like it really felt like that same kind of, I hate to use this word, but almost cultish passion, where they were so ingrained in the game that like is a little bit like, guys, it's just a game. Calm down just a little bit. Like, I mean, I
understand people have, a deep nostalgia for that, and like I mean, technically speaking, the majority of people who play MMOs or have played MMOs chase the first one that they fell in love with.
Yeah.
Are always chasing it.
Yeah.
So I get that, but yeah. Maybe you can go a little too deep into it.
I think so, and we saw that with EverQuest when it first came out. I mean, people literally died playing that game because they stopped eating and taking care of themselves. Like it's wild.
People do that in WoW too.
Yeah. It happens. It's a wild thing, but it does happen. So originally, Darkfall was developed by a, funny enough, Oslo, Norway studio called Razorwax, who was then merged or acquired by, I'm not really too sure how it all turned out, but they were integrated with a dev studio based out of Athens, Greece called Adventurin, something like that. And it was basically like, oh, they started collabing, and then somebody in Oslo was like, oh, we should move to Greece because tax and all this and that, as kind of an offhanded comment, and they did. So they did. Eventually the game, like I said, came out in 2009, and it shut down literally 3 years later after just a world of, I don't know if I want to say over promising, but maybe getting in too deep with what their ambitions and their goals were for this game. Since then, the game kind of went dark, and then there was talks that this company was trying to sell the license to Darkfall, and it turns out that two separate companies bought the license to make another Darkfall game. One of them being this game right here, Rise of Agon, which is the name of the world, if I'm not mistaken, and they are Big Picture Games. They're basically all ex-fans of the original game that got together to form a studio, bought the rights to it, and started developing what they felt the game should have been, and a lot of the promise of what the game was supposed to be. The other one was a company called Uber Games, and the most bizarre thing here is both of them acquired the rights around the same time, started working around the same time, and then launched their game, soft launch in the case of Rise of Agon, because I think you can play it now, but I don't know, it's a very interesting situation with this game I didn't really fully grasp. But they both launched in 2018, and then according to a Reddit post from 2 years ago, it said that 5 years ago, Uber Games shut down, which if you do the math there, that means this game launched in roughly January, I think it was March of 2018, and then shut down by the end of the year. So that one was actually Agon, or that game was Darkfall New Dawn. And I'm starting to sit here going, is this game cursed?
Seriously.
It seems like every dev team that steps foot towards this game and releases something immediately shuts it down. So it has me wondering, is Darkfall Rise of Agon going to suffer the same fate? And Tim, you kind of hit on an important thought before we started, where you said this game is going to require a huge audience.
Yeah. Just watching the trailer, I don't think there's a single scene that doesn't show a shit ton of people.
Yeah,
all the time. I mean, there's one over the shoulder camera where this guy's like being a smithy or something like that. He's crafting of some sort. That's probably the only one. Every other instance, there's just a shit ton of people on the screen at once. You know, they're not even just doing raids, but you know, exploring or sailing or you know whatever you may be doing. It seems to me that every aspect of this game is going to be player led. Which isn't a bad thing. You know, there's plenty of games that do that, but those don't leave everything to the player base. And that's sort of what it feels like this is doing. And more or less, if there's not a lot of people playing this game, I feel like it's gonna become empty and practically unplayable. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, they did say there's no instances in the game at all. There's one server, which is also concerning because if it does blow up by mere chance, say it gets 200,000-300,000 people, you have one server with 200,000-300,000 people on it. That sounds awful. On the flip side, it also sounds reasonable if it's like 3,000 or 4,000. Right. So it becomes a question of like, okay, how successful? And we've seen weirdly enough, like they're building this game, but it's actually the original game. They literally didn't make a new game. So they took actual Darkfall and rebuilt it and started adding to it. So unlike, say, Pantheon, which is an entirely new built game to look old, and it has that graphical fidelity of like the polygon count is low, but the texture quality isn't, so you don't have that fuzziness. They're doing really well in terms of player count, and they're still in early access as well.
Pantheon is.
Yes, Pantheon is. But it's a different situation with that game, right? That was made as a spiritual sequel to a game, not a game brought back from death to be redeveloped. So
yeah, there's something just when you look at the footage for this game, it just looks really old. Unlike Pantheon, like you said, it's got that sort of new sheen to it, even though it kind of looks like an old game.
Yeah.
This just looks like it released in 2001.
Yes, absolutely.
Because it did, I guess.
It did. It's not a new engine. It's not new graphics. It's not high poly count. It's not high texture quality. It probably doesn't even have like global illumination in terms of lighting.
I doubt it.
Like it's literally feels like you're playing EverQuest 1, but in the worst ways, in my opinion.
Yep.
Yeah. To the people that are fans of this game, I wish you the best. I think personally, I'm going to skip this one. I've never been big on PvP in a fantasy game. It's too grindy to be PvP, in my opinion. Like, depending on how easily gear is accessible here, right? You do have a stash. You can store things, like most MMOs. There's player housing. You can build boats, build cities, craft all kinds of stuff. Like, it's got a lot of player choice and player agency in it, in its openness. But at the same time, it feels like they just kind of smashed everything into one MMO.
It almost makes me think of the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once. In the sense of what they're trying to do. Not necessarily whatever the movie was.
Sure. Yeah. Just the title, right? The title.
Yeah, just the title. Yeah. And I guess that's entirely possible on such an old game. Like they could easily implement and change stuff probably pretty damn quickly, given it's nowhere near as complex as modern games. But
I don't know. That's the thing, right? It's like we say that, but modern games, as in terms of development, like, they're easy, right? Like, I can't imagine what coding looks like for EverQuest.
I mean, I would say yes and no.
Yeah.
Simply because there's so many more things to worry about in modern games, like just the lighting that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, that's fair.
So much more realistic lighting. You have to consider, more computational power, blah, blah, blah. But so they could do more quickly. But the thing is how well is that going to work on, a large scale when you've got one gigantic server and a shit ton of people playing? And they got to figure out how to hook people and keep them playing and make the world work if the player count drops. And I mean, just look at history. The vast majority of MMOs, they lose players over time. Like, when I say the vast majority, I mean like 98.9% of them lose player counts fairly quickly until, they figure things out or add new content or whatever it may be. I mean, there's obviously an ebb and flow to all MMOs, but still, you've got to do something very special in order to keep the player base around for a while.
Yeah, you're not wrong. So just speaking here about Pantheon, right? Going back to Pantheon, their all-time peak of players in the last 2 months was just shy of 7,000. And I feel like this game would be lucky to pull those kind of numbers. What has me concerned the most about Rise of Agon, this game has failed twice from 2 other devs.
Yeah.
It clearly doesn't have a wide reach. If it's too niche, it sounds great, but the question becomes like, okay, so obviously this is a passion project, right? This is a game that is being built by the players of the original. The question then becomes, how much are you willing to sink into this to keep what you loved running? If nobody's playing it but you guys, is it worth continuing to spend the money to keep that server online? Maybe for them it is. I mean, we're carrying the weight of this podcast, not making the money to cover the podcast. And I have no problem carrying that burden because this is our passion, right? So,
maybe that's theirs.
Maybe it is theirs, and it'll just exist for the people that want it to exist. And I don't know. It's interesting because it also seems like they're launching it as a free game, so it makes me wonder if it's going to be a freemium, like what they're doing, or if it's going to be like the Castlevania game that you can't play that we talked about. That's going to be a passion. Yeah.
Castlevania-like game.
Yes, right. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, that was on our Patreon exclusive for last episode. You should join Patreon and check it out. We talk about games over there too.
Yep.
So I don't know. This is a weird one. It's friendly fire is always going to be on. Collision detection is always going to be on. There's mount-based combat. There's first-person style combat. Third-person style combat.
If it's free to play or not?
I don't know if they confirmed it, but it seemed like, let me see here.
Because if it's free to play, then obviously they have a much higher chance of getting people to play the game.
It does say it's free on Steam.
Doesn't mean people will stick to it.
Right. So. It does say it's free on Steam. When you first type it into the search, it says Rise of Agon is free. So it says it's coming to early access. Doesn't have a release date yet, but also, again, the guy who brought this to my attention said you can go to their website and play it now. So I'm not sure where this falls in terms of its accessibility currently, or what their planned monetization is, or if they're just going to eat the cost of hosting the server for as long as they need to host it. So I don't know. It's an interesting one. And I mean, if it does launch free, I'll check it out, I guess. But yeah, maybe. I mean, it depends on what's coming out around the same time, you know?
Or just go back to Pantheon.
Yeah, but that's what I was going to say. The reality is I'll probably just go back to Pantheon because, you know, it looks like this is what Ashes of Creation would be if Ashes of Creation tried to make their MMO in 2001.
Yeah, I did sort of get that feeling too, based on what they were saying. Yeah, and the way they tried to describe their game. It was like, it kind of feels like they're taking a lot of cues from Ashes of Creation. So I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, but they also, from what I can tell, like a lot of the features they're putting into it were things that were planned or wanted to be planned in the original, you know? Yeah. So it seems like these ideas have been around for a while, but just bad execution. And I think this game is just cursed. I think ultimately this game will probably end up shutting down too, which is disappointing because you never want to see a game go away. But if the last two iterations of the game have failed, you don't have good odds.
No.
So
there's not a very good likelihood that they're going to get enough players to keep playing it. But I mean, wish them all the best, and here's hoping it works out.
Yeah, I mean, the nice thing here is because it's an old game, you can play it on a potato. You know, even though Pantheon,
a true potato.
Yes. Probably. Yeah, you could plug this thing into a 24-volt car battery and you'd probably play it. This is going to be the next, but can it run Doom? It's going to be, but can it run Darkfall? Yeah, I mean, and despite Pantheon looking like you can run it on a potato, it's not really well optimized, and it's built on Unity right now, so it actually still is very taxing on some systems.
I mean, I actually just went to look at Pantheon just to kind of get an idea, and Pantheon actually looks really, really good graphically by comparison.
Yeah, Pantheon
it looks so
great.
Much better.
Yes,
but
absolutely.
Again, it's a new game made to look old,
right?
And this game is just old. 24 years old.
This one, you've probably got like animations that are running at 16 frames, where Pantheon has animations running at 30 or 60 or whatever a modern, Unity runs. So you've got better, it's an old game that is an old game. And there's something to be said about that. Like, nostalgia is a real thing. I just don't know what the actual following for Darkfall was, because I feel like they tried to launch this game. I think it was like 16 months after they announced it, they were trying to run a beta. And that beta, like, they took signups and everything, and it never happened. And it's like, you launched in 2001, so you were newer than EverQuest when you you didn't launch, but you started development. You were newer than EverQuest by 2 years when you started development, and you saw how successful EverQuest was, and you went a completely opposite direction from EverQuest. So to
be fair, EverQuest was one of the first like really, really, really big MMOs. Yes, there was that one before it that really cemented MMOs. I can't remember the name.
I think Ultima was before. I think that was the bigger. That was before, because that's what they cite as a influence for this.
Like, that's my point. Is like, MMOs were really new at the time, and yes, they saw how successful EverQuest was, but nothing else had really been tried yet.
That's fair.
And so maybe they were hoping that we can push MMOs in this direction, and complete freedom, versus a confined space that you're just sort of playing by the rules.
Yeah. Which nowadays this feels almost more like it would be more at home against, say, Conan Exiles or Dune Awakening. Like it feels like it's a sandbox game, not an MMORPG. Because they do say that you're completely free to do this, free to do that, free to do this. Okay, well that's cool, but one of the selling points that I actually, after playing as much Final Fantasy 16 as I have, one of the big selling points of that game, in my opinion, as a busy father and a grown-ass adult, is its linear, story-based, direct content. I can put that game down for 3 weeks, walk away from it, and come back and know exactly what the hell's going on. Very clearly know where I left off. Whereas, like, one of my biggest hurdles with getting through Witcher 3 is constantly being like, I gotta put this down, I've got to focus on something else, I've got to do this, and then coming back and being like, what the fuck am I doing? Where the fuck am I? What's going on? Fuck, I'll just start over.
More games need the, this is what happened last time you
Dude, oh my god, that'd be so nice.
There's a few games that have done it and they've always been great.
I hate the way episodic games do it, like the Until Dawn. It does it all the time where it's like every chapter it's like, this is what happened. It's like, yeah, I just fucking played, bro. Like, do this when I start the game. But that ability to just be like, yeah, this is what you've completed so far in your story, and these are the controls refresher if you've been gone for more than a week, would be absolutely beneficial.
If I remember, what was the game? It was such a phenomenal game that I loved back in the day. It was a PS2 game. Damn. It was an RPG. Like right now, I'm seeing the intro in my head. It was such an awesome game. Damn, it was on my mind. Anyways, Rogue Galaxy. That's what it is. Every time you turned it on, it would give you basically this is what happened, like kind of like you went back and read like a cliff notes of what you just did.
Nice.
That way it could just kind of tell you what you just did, and it, obviously as you progress through the game, it would just have a preset version of this is what just happened, because it's a very linear Final Fantasy like RPG, but still, like, that idea is just, I don't know why that can't be done more often, because it just makes life so much easier, especially with how long games are these days. And even just a story, this is what happened. You don't even have to give you the controls. You can figure that stuff out on your own. But
it's and Final Fantasy 16 is great because the story is fantastic and it's the main focus of the game. Whereas like other open world games, it's one of those things where it's like, I'm not sure where I was, so I've got to spend some time to figure that out and then get back into the world and then get back into the controls, and now I can play the game. Nope, got to stop and go do something else. So it just makes it difficult. But speaking of things that are difficult and facing your fears, let's talk about a new Silent Hill game that was announced. It was revealed. It was revealed, right? Because I think they had shown us this.
They showed it off last year,
right? Silent Hill F, lowercase f to be specific. I assume this means something different in Japanese, because it's a really stupid name, in my opinion. It doesn't make any sense.
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I mean, there was a Tales of Graces F, I think is what it was called.
Yeah, it's got to be something on like the is it the kanji that they call their writing? The
kanji.
Yeah, that's it. Like
I think so.
Yeah, like it's got to be like F. The translation. There's something getting lost in the translation.
There's another game as well. I can't remember, but it's an RPG that also has the F at the end. Yeah. So it's not a new thing,
right?
So yeah, maybe it does mean something.
It's got to have some kind of significant relevance to the Japanese culture, and it's just a poor name for an American game because we're just like, well, fucking why? Silent Hill fail? What are we talking about here? So I don't know. It's an interesting choice because I know, is it 6 that like the way it's pronounced in Japanese also means death or something like that? It's one of those numbers that like when it's pronounced in Japanese, it's pronounced the same way as death. I can't remember if it's 6 or 3 or one of those numbers, but I digress. This Silent Hill takes place in Japan in the 1960s. That's what it was. I've got some concerns just immediately. Silent Hill's a place in America. So there's that.
Russ does have a point. Silent Hill itself is the name of the town, and it is based in America. The game name being Silent Hill, based on the name of the town, the fictional town, based in America, does complicate this because all of the supernatural stuff that ends up happening in Silent Hill is from, I think the lore references it specifically as a demon god, an ancient otherworldly being, more or less. So yes, it is kind of confusing in the sense of why are we calling this one Silent Hill when it doesn't actually take place in Silent Hill, but it does supposedly take place from that same otherworldly being, which to me that implies is like a prequel or an origin story of how this being came to be or something. I don't know. I'm just here to fact check shit and edit the video. So on that note, back to the video.
I mean, it'll certainly be interesting as to how they explain that.
I don't think they're going to.
Yeah, I mean, so like, while I agree with it's Silent Hill and therefore it should take place in Silent Hill, at the same time, I mean, it's supernatural, so it doesn't have to be Silent Hill.
But at that point, it almost seems like you're using the Silent Hill name the way Assassin's Creed used the Assassin's Creed name for Black Flag. Assassin's Creed Black Flag, I'll die on this hill. Assassin's Creed Black Flag was not an Assassin's Creed game. It was a Pirates game with Assassin's Creed attached to it.
It was damn good, though.
It was damn good, but it was not an Assassin's Creed game. And I feel like this will be a damn good psychological thriller and horror game.
Yeah,
without a doubt. But this isn't Silent Hill. Silent Hill's a place. And it just feels like they're using the title Silent Hill to sell this game rather than letting this be its own unique psychological thriller IP based in Japan in the 1960s. Because this looks terrifying.
It really does, and they're going for an authentic 1960s Japan too. So everything that comes along with that, with which I would assume includes racism and gender roles and all that other stuff that was typical of the time. And they actually even sort of give you a disclaimer in somewhere where they basically state all of that. So they're going for authentic, but also fucking absolutely terrifying because it sure looks like it's gonna be.
Yeah, absolutely, without a doubt. I did like that you shared that. I think it was in the mod comms. You shared the picture of that like disclaimer or whatever, and I put a GIF up that was like people dancing and said one of these things is not like the other. It's because go ahead.
I was gonna be honest, that confused me. I didn't know what the hell that was.
All right, I figured it did because you didn't laugh at it. So if you read that, it says this game has depictions of, I think it was abuse, discrimination, racism, something like that. It was a bunch of things, and then it said bullying. And I was like, that doesn't belong on that list, man. That is so low on that list that does not even need to be there. Like, it's like 5 horrible things and bullying. And I was just like, no.
Yeah, you're 100% right. It says, the game contains depictions of gender discrimination, child abuse, drug-induced hallucinations, torture, graphic violence, and bullying. Now, bullying was in the middle of that. I decided to save it to the end, but still, it's like, what?
Yeah. On a list of horrible things, bullying that stands out a little bit.
Yeah, bullying is. Obviously, there's a gigantic social stance on that these days.
Sure. And it's an issue, but when compared to child abuse, drug-induced hallucinations, gender discrimination, that's not even worth talking. Like, that is, just put that down, buddy. You're not even at this table.
I mean, I have a very controversial take on bullying, and not necessarily bullying itself. Not the way kids fuck with other kids and where it's actually like really bad.
Yeah.
My stance is more on like when you have shitty fucking, what do they call them? They call them nuisance influencers, I think is what they call them, where people are basically just assholes for no reason on camera, and they record themselves and they put that shit online. And like, I've seen some stuff where they've like thrown piss on people, or
I would not do that to me.
Yeah. Or there was this guy, I can't remember who he was, but he went to Korea and he got his ass beat multiple times because he was doing some shit that he shouldn't have. And I think that's good, 100%. But that's my point. We need to bring back publicly shaming
Consequences?
people. Yeah, there you go. Publicly shaming, beating the shit out of people, and consequences for assholes and for acting like a douchebag in public, which isn't bullying, but it kind of is, you know.
It can be misconstrued as bullying, sure, but when you look at like the actions that led to this result, no, this guy needs to accept the consequences of his actions. Like, you fuck around, you're gonna find out. That's that's the saying, right? So
but yeah, back to Silent Hill. The rest of this disclaimer says the game is set in Japan in the 1960s and contains depictions based on the customs and culture of that time. These depictions do not reflect the opinions, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. I've got mixed feelings on this announcement. Like, I both simultaneously like it and don't like it, because it's one of those things. It's like, okay, it's good to know what you're getting into, right? Like, it puts you in the right mindset to understand that this is going to be an effed up game. Child abuse alone, that's a big buzzword. That's a hard one, I think, for most parents. Is like, holy, okay, well, like there are literally shows that I've watched with friends who are like, do they kill the kid? Because if they kill the kid, we're stopping the show right now. Like, it's that kind of stuff. Like, it hits deep when you're a parent. So on for that side of things, I appreciate this, but there's also that last bit which you mentioned there, which these aren't views that we share. That shouldn't have to be said. No one should pick this game up and go like, oh, Konami supports gender discrimination. No, you're playing a game set in a time period that this was the thing. Okay, it's the setting. That's like saying, oh, I read Huck Finn, so I'm a racist, or whatever, like that nonsense, right? Like,
we don't need disclaimers for every little thing. Right. People need to,
use your brain. Use your brain.
Yeah.
Use your brain.
I want to say man up, but yeah.
Use your brain.
Be logical.
Yes. Use your brain. You got a couple of wrinkles on it. Put a few more. Just use your brain.
People are becoming more and more smooth brain these days. It seems like.
It feels that way.
Yeah. I agree with you. I don't think we need all of these little disclaimers or warnings ahead of time. But I mean,
it's got mixed. Like I said, it's mixed feelings, right? Because like some of it is like, okay, it's good to know what you're getting into, but the other side of it, like the part where I go like, that shouldn't be necessary. I understand why you did it, but it shouldn't be necessary to say we don't share the views of this game. It's just for the set. Like, you shouldn't have to say that. But if they didn't,
this is a
somebody
story.
Yeah, like it's the same thing with like, well, they have to put hot on the side of coffee cups because people need to know the coffee's hot.
Yeah,
bitch. What? So
yeah, that almost makes me wonder: would you be able to have any sort of litigation against a company that's telling a story that has some sort of? Well, no, because that's creative freedom. But
so
I mean, ignoring that entirely, I'm pretty sure it's simply just to make people feel better and let them be more informed.
Yeah,
I still think it's kind of stupid. But whatever. I guess ultimately it doesn't necessarily harm anything. I think it's kind of dumb going like, so for a game or for a product that hasn't released yet. Sure, you can let people know ahead of time. But like I want to say Looney Tunes started to do this, and Disney definitely did. Where going back to the old stuff they released, they've got disclaimers on now. This was made in a time where it was okay to do this or whatever. Yes, they've started doing that.
All right,
and that is dumb if you ask me, because
I mean,
releasing it, they're just available now, but now they've got warnings on them. I don't know. Back to Silent Hill. I actually decided to look up to see if I could figure out a reason for what the F means in anything. And for Silent Hill, it's ambiguous. We don't know. For Tales of Graces, it actually kind of means future, which at the time was, them talking about the future of the franchise. So it doesn't seem to have a nailed down meaning. The F symbol itself isn't some sort of Japanese thing that's well known in Japan.
Okay.
So
it's just they chose F. As far as we know,
maybe,
unless it has something
they'll
to do
tell
with
us.
The story.
Yeah. Maybe they'll tell us in the future. We don't know. And then I decided to ask, why is the game in Japan when Silent Hill's in America? And more or less, that's also kind of not known. The short and gist of it is it says without official confirmation, it's likely a mix of the ideas that Silent Hill is more of a name that signifies the franchise and its signature atmosphere and psychological depth rather than its geography. And so
they're using the name to sell the game.
They're using the name, which, like I said, like for me, I'm not necessarily upset about that. I'm not upset about the way Assassin's Creed did it either, because it had Assassin's Creed's features in it with much more, you know. So like for me, I'm less upset about that. I do get that, like they sort of shouldn't have called it Silent Hill, or maybe they could have called it like Silent Hill Japan, or I don't know. Somehow figured out how to tie. I mean, hell, for all we know, they do tie it somehow. Maybe some guy that founded Silent Hill goes to Japan for some reason, and he brought the curse with it. I don't know. You know,
maybe Pyramid Head decided to go on vacation. Pyramid Head won a cruise.
I'm just imagining him on the beach and wearing, you know, beach shorts,
drinking a Mai Tai. He's got his big old freaking knife next to him, trying to drink a Mai Tai through his Pyramid Head. Just
now, I want to ask an AI to generate that.
Oh, dude, no, that'd be fucking hilarious. If you're an artist, you should draw that. If anybody's an artist out there, please draw Pyramid Head sitting on like a lounge chair on a beach with a Mai Tai and shorts on. Like that's a great image.
To make it even better, have him trying to drink the Mai Tai and it's like going down the pyramid.
Yep.
Like he's not actually able to drink it.
Yep. Be fantastic. So I don't know. The game overall looks really good. It's Silent Hill, so it's going to be enjoyable. I'm still disappointed about what ended up happening with Norman Reedus and Silent Hills falling through, because that PT trailer into that
PT was so good.
Dude, PT effed me up for a little bit. I'll be honest. Bro. Like I think it broke me. Like legitimately, I think it broke me, because like now I watch or experience horror things. I'm like, oh, okay, that's kind of scary. Like nothing has hit me the way PT did. I genuinely think my like adrenaline fear response is gone because of that demo. Like that messed me up so hard.
There's very little that comes even close to that.
Dude,
I so wish that I'd kept that on my console before they removed it.
I watch
go back.
I watch so many horror movies with these headphones on in pitch black in my freaking office, just watching horror movies and playing horror games by myself in the dark, that like I'm like, oh shit, fucking got me. Nothing has come even close to PT.
I was in the room with two other people, I believe, when I originally played that, and we watched the trailers where they didn't show you what happened, but they showed you how the audience reacted.
Just enough.
Yeah, and all of us reacted exactly like those people in the trailer, because we were all like, oh fuck, like more than once. That shit was scary. They did such a good job on that. It was impressive.
Dude, I literally got to a point in that game where I was like, it's right behind me. I can't turn around. It's like, I was terrified. To turn the camera. Every corner, I'm like, it's right behind me. It's right behind. I can, like, I'm playing it, feeling it breathing on my actual neck. And I'm just like, it's right behind me.
Which actually makes me sort of like, I know we're way off Silent Hill here, but Kojima is working on two other projects now that aren't Death Stranding, right? He's working on one for PlayStation, one for Xbox, and isn't the Xbox one supposed to be a horror title?
I don't know. I don't
know what it's called.
We'll have to.
We talked about it when they announced it, but I think it's a horror title. They showed a little bit of like the heads of the actors, and like it looked really good graphically, because it's basically direct scans of them. But I wonder if Kojima's building off what he did with PT in that game. But maybe I'm misremembering.
Yeah, who knows? But either way, back to Silent Hill. I'm curious to find out what the flowers have to do with Silent Hill. I'm assuming they don't look like poppies, because poppies are orange, right? I'm pretty sure poppies are orange, so it couldn't be opium.
At least California poppies are.
Yeah. Let me Google this real quick. Are there such thing as red poppies? Because it mentions drug hallucinations, right, in that call out?
Yes, it does say drug-induced hallucinations, yes.
Let's see. Yeah, many poppy flowers are indeed red. So I wonder if it has to do like if she's getting effed up on opium, is what these red flowers are. They don't really look like poppies to me, but like, yeah, they definitely don't look like poppies.
Are poppies in Japan?
Yeah, that's why the opium crisis in, I think it was in Japan, maybe it was China. There was an opium crisis in one of the Asian nations, and I suck at history.
Poppies are in Japan.
I thought so.
And the red variety actually looks like it's the common one.
Yeah. So
that you might be onto something.
It could be poppy related, could be opiates, which it's a little late for the opiate crisis in the 1960s. I'm pretty sure like their opium crisis was shortly after Americans came, or not Americans, but like Europeans. Because I think it was when trade routes started, they found that opium could be treated as a medicine, and it spiraled out of control from there. So like if this is 1960s, we're in a weird situation, but I don't know. Either way, when it comes to horror games, Silent Hill has always been one of my favorites. Resident Evil honestly was never scary to me. Silent Hill gives you a gun occasionally, but
yeah,
not starting, and you never have ammo. Like it's a tense ride every time.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see, like, she picks up the lead pipe there at the end. So I wonder if there's going to be some level of combat where she just finally just says fuck it and start fighting back. Because there's a certain point in actually, like, I think it's psychology. There's a certain point where the brain basically processes fear to the point where once you know what you're afraid of, it becomes easier to fight back against your fear. Like once you've identified and put a face or a name to your fear, it becomes easier to fight through it.
Yeah, that's a well-known psychological fact. Basically, once you understand something, it becomes not only less scary, but you're more willing to deal with it, regardless of if it's something scary or not.
Right.
So yes.
So I wonder if that's kind of what we're seeing there at the end. And then, her face being cut off of her face. Fucking terrifying. So
yeah, the only real problem I had with the trailer is it didn't really show us much gameplay.
It didn't, yeah.
So I'm presuming it's going to play much more similar to the Silent Hill 2 remake that just launched about this time last year.
Yeah.
And that game actually had a really scary vibe to it.
Yeah,
and I remember
me up.
Yeah,
the original 2.
Well, I mean, this remake follows the Resident Evil 2 or Resident Evil remake formula, where it's much the same but also a lot different, and they really expand upon what the original game was. And so they did a really good job with a sort of a slow burn psychological approach, because that's what Silent Hill is.
Yes,
and they made it an actual, like, sort of terrifying experience compared to the originals.
Yeah.
So this might actually be worth you looking into the Silent Hill 2 remake.
Yeah.
But I feel like Japan, or at least Japanese horror, has always been more psychological and honestly kind of demonic.
Yeah.
they go with those two demons / psychological horror rather than just pure slasher, like America does.
I mean, it's also built into their culture with the yokai and stuff like that. Like crazy stories of demon spirits that are really awesome out there.
Yeah, they really do have some cool stories. But that's my point. Is I think they're gonna go probably much deeper into the spiritual realm with this one, which Silent Hill's always got that, but it also felt like that Americanized version of it, more slasher with scary.
It's
I don't know. Less demons, you know what I mean? I feel like this one will probably introduce more of those, like you say, yokai and such like that, to make it more, scary, like almost like the way Ghostwire Tokyo did.
Yeah, I haven't played that.
But less combat. That was actually really fun.
I've heard that. Yeah, it looked good. Yeah. I just was one that I never got around to. I think it's only on PS5, isn't it? Is it on PC?
It came to Xbox, and I would presume PC because of that.
Yeah. It's Silent Hill in the past has been that like middle section between demon and feeling like the hills have eyes, right? Like it's got that kind of like American folklore horror Appalachia vibe, mixed with demons and shit. And I would love to play Silent Hill 2 remake. I don't know if my heart can handle getting the flashlight again. That scarred me, dude. I was 8. I was 8 when I grabbed that flashlight for the first time, and my heart damn near jumped out of my chest. So
I understand that.
yeah, the nurses fucked me up. That shit messed my brain up.
Right.
Yeah, that game had some great moments.
So just a couple of points of updates based on what we've talked about. Hideo Kojima's game for Xbox is called OD, and yes, it is a
OD. That's right. Yeah.
Yes. And Ghostwire is available on PC. It's actually currently on sale because of the spring sale going on right now, and it's only $15. It's
nice,
a really good price.
Yeah, spring sale is on until the 20th. A lot of good games on really deep discount.
Lots of good stuff.
Yep. Actually, Strix has never played A Way Out. So I actually just went and bought A Way Out on PC because it was on sale for $5. And I was like, yeah, why the fuck not? Right.
Fantastic.
It's an incredible game. But yeah.
Do you ever claim anything on the Epic Game Store when it's free?
Sometimes.
Especially if I bring it up. Okay. The reason why I say that is because I actually remembered Ghostwire Tokyo was free at one point on the Epic Game Store, and maybe you claimed it. So you go look.
I might have. I don't know if I did, but Silent Hill Japan could be cool. The yokai present a lot of really great stuff there. The psychological horror is ingrained into their culture, like you said. I mean, a lot of their stuff is demon or psychological based. Like just the idea of kicking it back old school to The Ring, right? The idea that you have 7 days left to live, or The Grudge, right? Or you've got one of my personal favorites, The Signal. Was it The Signal? Was it The Signal? There was I don't remember if it was The Signal.
Is that a game or a movie?
It's a movie. God, what was the horror movie? So I think it was called Signal or something along those lines. Basically, there was an American version, as there is, and there's a Japanese version. And the idea behind it is when people die, they basically overflow hell. There is no heaven and there's only hell, and hell is full, and people are coming back through the radio waves and like trying to reclaim their life by basically crawling through the frequencies in the air to kill you. And so like the movie doesn't work very well in America because we're a big country and we've got signal everywhere. But the idea basically comes down to like you get away by getting out of signal, right? Like into dead zone. And yeah, just a really great horror movie. So anyways, that's Silent Hill. I don't know that we have a whole lot more to talk on that topic. Tim, any final thoughts before we move on?
No, hopefully they'll show us more actual gameplay, but yeah, that's really about it.
I have a feeling it's going to play. You're probably right. It's probably going to play a lot like 2 Remake. I could see that very clearly. But speaking of sequels and follow-ups, a new game from the devs of Disco Elysium has been teased. It's called Project C4 currently. If you've played Disco Elysium, this seems like it's going to be more of the same to a certain extent. They have confirmed that it is going to be dice rolling, I imagine about the same system as Disco. So it's probably going to be that D6 system, which, by the way, man, let me tell you, I have tried to play Disco Elysium a couple of times, and I struggle to get into that game, and I really want to get into that game because I know it's a phenomenal game. It's critically acclaimed. It's an incredible narrative. The voice acting, like just everything that I've experienced has been great, other than how convoluted their dice system is. And my issue is when I don't understand a system and I keep losing at it, it feels like the game's cheating, and it immediately kills my interest in the game.
Doesn't feel fun.
Yeah, it kills the fun of the game. So like I think in the opening, which you're supposed to suck in the beginning of the game, as is the idea, I kept dying because I sucked so bad that like it wasn't fun. I was like, this sucks. I don't understand why this is happening. The game's not being clear. Maybe I'm looking in the wrong place. But from everything I've heard about Disco Elysium, it is a fantastic game. And those of you who have played it are probably screaming at me like you're a fucking loser. Yeah, you're not wrong. But this is their next game. This is what they're working on next. Right now, Project C4. what are your initial thoughts, Tim? Did you watch the? I think you shared this in our weekly discussion.
Yeah, a little teaser.
Yeah.
So I'm actually a little confused at the moment because at pretty much exactly the same time that this was announced. So let me take a step back here.
Yeah.
When Disco Elysium came out, they basically almost immediately fired the majority of their team.
Yes.
It didn't matter how well the game did. They almost immediately fired them, even though the game did super well. And so my understanding is that basically the majority of the team that got let go made a new studio. And I can't remember if the new team that was made from old members is making this, or if this is actually the OG, the team from Disco Elysium. And look, so from everything I'm finding, it says the award-winning game developers, however you say it, GA/UM, whatever. It says they announced their latest game, and they're known for Disco Elysium. Well, I mean, so like, I think this is the team that was left behind after the people that were fired. And then, of course, I'm sure they've hired more people.
I feel like that's a safe assumption.
Yeah, and so that's why I was like, well, shit, because I could have sworn I also read that other team that was formed after being let go is also making and / announced a game. That's why I'm over here like, well, fuck. But I can't find anything without, say probably looking at Grok or something.
Yeah.
But so I sort of had a similar experience with Disco Elysium. Everyone kept telling me to play it, and I bought it at one point when it was like $5 or something like that. And I did put it on the Steam Deck. And to me, I didn't actually have so much trouble that I was dying all the time, but I had trouble getting into it because I don't know. I guess the majority of the game is just talking. That's all you do.
Yeah,
like,
it's very dialogue heavy. Yeah,
it's extremely dialogue heavy, and there's not really a lot of. There's like almost no skill involved.
Yeah, because it's all dice roll.
Yeah, it's all dice roll, and there's definitely times where I wish I could do something, but I can't because my stats are low or whatever. I can't play my character the way I want. The writing was really good for what I played. I think I played it for probably about 3 hours or so, and I see why people enjoy it,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know if I can say I couldn't be bothered, but I was more drawn to something else, and so I never went back to it.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of where I'm at, right? Like it's a game that I do want to revisit, but I also have that stigma in my mind, right? Of like, do I want to suffer through this? Kind of like how I felt about
get to the good part.
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt with Eternal Strands, right? Like, do I want to suffer through what is awful here and assume that the game gets better and be out my money if it doesn't, or do I want to just say, nope, this isn't for me? And it so many games. There's so many fucking games out there. It's hard to know when to quit and when to go back. I mean, I think it took me, I want to say it took me 2 or 3 times playing Witcher 2 to finally get through Witcher 2 when I played Witcher 2. So like it's one of those where it's like, fuck, this game is hard and I just don't want to deal with it right now. It's the main reason I don't play Souls games anymore. I don't want to just bash my face against the wall and spend an hour in one fight trying to kill one boss. That's not fun. That's not my enjoyment, right? So
it sounds like you're just not very good at them, and I don't mean that in a bad way. In a bad way, I just mean like because they're not your forte, you don't want to sit there and learn the system to be good at it. And I get it. I mean, the same thing for me in Disco Elysium and games more along the lines of Baldur's Gate, but not necessarily Baldur's Gate. That makes sense for me.
Yeah, Baldur's Gate does a good job at like making the system clear enough and easy enough for you to pick up and learn. And it's built off of D&D 5e, which is the most popular version of D&D ever. So it's not exactly 5e, but it's near enough, right? So but going back to Project C4, I believe you're right in saying that this is the team that was left after the good devs, I guess you could say. I don't know if that's fair to say. The other portion of the devs were let go. There's not a whole lot we know other than this is an espionage RPG that has some sort of psychological aspect to it. There's the dice rolling system from Disco Elysium, and it's going to be a spy versus spy espionage kind of thing, which makes me draw a couple of potential conclusions here, right? First of all, time frame. Based on the visuals that we're seeing and this idea of psychological warfare, my guess, and I could be completely off base here, so this is going to be like a Cold War era spy game. I don't have a lot to draw on for that other than this idea of spy versus spy is very old school. It doesn't seem like something that fits a cyberpunk style universe since everything is tech. It seems, and the imagery that they show is a lot of like analog things, right? You've got tapes, you've got microphones, you've got things of that nature. There's a lot of string, quote unquote, a cup of coffee in a paper cup. Like it feels very grounded in reality, unlike Disco Elysium, which was post cyberpunk kind of stuff. Which then raises another question, in my opinion. If we're talking about a psychological depth to this game and espionage, what do you think the odds are they're going to rope MK Ultra in? Which, for those of you who don't know what MK Ultra is, it was pretty much the reason most people don't trust the American government. It's when the American government, i.e. the CIA, experimented with hallucinogenics on the population of America without their knowledge or consent. Is the single reason. It was a conspiracy for a very long time and became fact, and it is the one thing conspiracy nuts hang their hat on, saying like, well, this was true. It doesn't mean everything's true, but it did mean that the CIA did in fact conduct LSD experiments on people without their knowledge, including themselves. There are other members, like, look up MK Ultra Project. It's a wild fucking story. It's literally insane. But it makes me wonder if you're going to be somehow involved in that, or if, you know, that kind of psychological warfare is going to take place in the game in some form or another.
I wouldn't be terribly surprised if it goes that route, because I mean, there's very little stories on it. I mean, there are documentaries and other things like that, but there's never really been anything that's been overtly about that.
Right.
And even if they're not overt, I can see them, you know, telling an allegory or something like that similar to it, you know. And they have specifically stated that it's not a James Bond-esque spy game.
Right.
And so moving towards something a little bit more less known or a conspiracy level, you know, information would make for a really compelling game.
And it also kind of just feels like it fits really well in their wheelhouse with kind of Disco Elysium and the setting of Disco Elysium, right? Like that hopelessness, I guess, that Disco Elysium really sells. So I don't know. It could be really cool. I still hope that there's going to be a little bit more, not action, but I guess involvement rather than just interacting, because Disco Elysium did feel very old school point and click Secret of Monkey Island style game. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I hope there's more interaction in this, but I don't know. We'll see. So that will, that is, I think, all we've got currently. We've got another couple of days before GDC kicks off on the 18th, which will just flood us with news, and hopefully we'll get some news about the Zeus GPU we talked about last week. But that's all I got for you guys tonight for the main topics. Tim, let's go ahead and jump into Quickfire.
Yeah, I'm gonna see if I can leave you guys off on good nuts this time.
That'd be great. Let's not bring the audience down.
Yeah. So I'll start with one that's cool, but God of War Ragnarok, God of War just passed its 20th anniversary, and Ragnarok is getting content for it. And sadly, that appears to be the extent of the 20th anniversary festivities. Don't get me wrong, they're cool and all, but like, that's it. Cosmetics. Come on now. Everyone was hoping for all sorts of stuff. You know, God of War remastered, or something or other. But well, there you go. It's available for everywhere you can play the game.
Those cosmetics, is there anything story based around those? Because like, I haven't played the new one or Ragnarok really to know, but like it seems like there's a reason for those armor sets, like Dark Abyss or something like that, right?
Yeah, Dark Odyssey.
That's what it is.
They're from God of War 2, I believe.
Okay.
they're relevant to the OG or earlier
remember
titles.
Okay.
The cosmetics are armor and appearances for you and Atreus, as well as Freya, and then there's weapons and shields and stuff like that. But, yeah, it's related to old stuff.
I don't remember that being. It doesn't matter.
Yep. On a note that everyone expected, I guess, the Starfield Creators Hub is basically leaking that Starfield is coming to PlayStation, which we've known and more or less have said this on rumors in the past. You know, people have been saying that it's coming. Well, this is basically confirmed at this point, because on the official Creators Hub on the app, you're starting to see PlayStation symbols for mods and stuff like that, and it's like,
yeah,
you didn't do a very good job of hiding that, but I guess it was expected.
I mean, didn't Phil say in an interview, "Oh yeah, it's coming to PlayStation"?
No,
okay.
He was asked if it was a title that they can for sure say isn't coming to PlayStation. He was like, "No, we're not going to put any red lines down."
Right.
I'm not going to say that. So, yep. A good note, although this doesn't really tell us much, really, if anything. The COO, I believe who it was, if it wasn't the COO, it was the CEO of Saber Interactive, came out and said that everything that's been announced is still being made. And so there's still hope for Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. He was not asked specifically about it, and he did not talk about any specific games. He just said, if it's been announced, we're still making it. So that pretty much tells us Knights of the Old Republic is still being made.
I mean, I guess. I don't.
Yeah.
At this point, it's becoming a meme, dude. Like, it's bad.
Over the past 3 years or so, it's been we're still making it, and 3 years is a long time to just keep saying yep, still being made, and show us nothing. And the fact that the only thing we've ever seen was what was it? It was an image of
it was a 14-second clip of Revan. Darth Revan.
There you go, Revan. Yeah. That's all it was. It was nothing. So they've got to have something to show us at this point, and or a damn good reason why they're not showing us. Hopefully, that good reason is it's really close to release, because I feel like I've been saying that for 3 years. Or they're they've got some sort of timeline for it, and I don't know.
I want to have hope.
Yeah,
but at this point, I almost feel like they're pulling our leg, like Half-Life 3. Like, that's what it feels like. It really feels like we're just like, oh yeah, we're still working on it. I mean, and they're just in the
Half-Life 3 thing. Half-Life 3 is a hell of a stretch to compare it to.
Yeah,
what, like 20 plus years?
Yeah, but they've confirmed that they're not working on it, right? So, like, I don't know. It just there's still people that believe Half-Life 3 is coming, and it's like, no, it's not.
Didn't we just talk about that like last week or the week before that?
We did. We really did.
Yeah. So moving along, Pal World is officially getting crossplay. They did not say exactly when, other than it's later this month. So, woohoo. That'll be good for the game, because if I remember correctly, when it was PC only, it dropped like 95% player base really fast. Although it launched on Xbox shortly after, and it's since launched on PlayStation 5, and I'm sure they've got a healthy enough player base. They've been adding lots of stuff to it, and the fact that Nintendo sued them for some stupid shit. Yeah. The developer behind Ori and the Blind Forest, their current game, No Rest for the Wicked, they have actually, the studio, Moon Studios, has actually pulled away from Take-Two Interactive, and they're now a fully independent studio, and they retain the rights to No More Rest for the Wicked, and they're going to continue to develop and finish it on their own. From what I understand, it's actually a really good game, so that's good. I'm waiting for a console release. This next one, I'm gonna leave this next one as a slow burn.
Okay.
I'm gonna give you a hint for those listening, or if you're ever interested in coming over to the Patreon side. This is some information about Naughty Dog's Intergalactic. But if you'd like to know more, come over there and take a look.
Yep.
The Xbox handheld rumors remain in the public discussion. This time around, they're saying us that they're telling us that it is basically a Steam Deck. It's going to be a mobile PC that has Game Pass built in. So, woohoo! I guess.
Speaking about that, I saw probably one of the stupidest fucking YouTube shorts I've ever seen in my life from someone on that, where he's like, "Oh, hey, Sony, thanks for giving us all your exclusives," and it's like Xbox going to Sony, and he's like, "What are you talking about?"
I saw that earlier today, actually.
I'm like, "This is the dumbest shit I've ever seen." Well, we're gonna have all your games on our system. And he's like, "I never gave you them." He's like, "Well, we're gonna run Steam," and I'm like, "That's not the same thing. That's not an Xbox."
It's a
because
PC.
it's Microsoft. That doesn't make it an Xbox. What the like? It was the most stretched logic I've seen in a long time. Where I was like, "That's okay."
Especially at the end. At the end, it said "cope harder."
Yeah.
Are you serious?
It's just like
it sounds like you're the one doing the coping here, buddy.
yeah. I was like, I mean, okay, sure.
If you're running PC hardware, therefore you can download PC games, then of course you're going to have PlayStation games that are on PC.
Yeah,
but guess what? Your games are on PlayStation too. So what's the flex here?
It was a video that I was like, that's okay.
Yep.
I'm just gonna scroll past that. That's a weird way to look at that, man. I guess 2 + 2 = fish in this case, because you're doing some weird math.
That guy normally makes pretty decent videos, but that was
they're hit or miss. They're hit or miss.
Yeah. Well, anyways, moving along, this time to Sony. Death Stranding 2 got a very lengthy trailer over the week, and it confirmed is also launching on June 26th. Interestingly enough, although I guess not necessarily, because the original game was PlayStation 4 exclusive. You could only play it on PS4 for the first year or so. This one is also PlayStation exclusive, except for this time it's PS5. No PC version at launch, and we will see how long it takes for that to come. And if it does come to Xbox, we've got a 5-year span, assuming it follows the same track record as the first one.
Well, it won't, because if they launch that handheld, it'll be on Xbox.
Well, I mean,
assuming it comes to PC before it comes to Xbox.
I mean, the Xbox has 500 million players, right? So,
dude, someday there's got to be somebody that comes down and goes like, "You guys can't advertise like this anymore. This is this is lying. Like, you can't do this." It's so fucking stupid.
If they said 500 million active users across every game, across every platform, that'd be different. But to say they have 500 million Xbox users,
it's that fucking thin line. Yeah.
Oh, unfortunately, that seems to be the norm these days.
Yeah.
Anyways, keeping with lengthy gameplay reveals, Crimson Desert got one recently.
Oh, did it?
Over the last week. And oh my God, it just continues to look amazing. Everything about it, it's just like, how did you make all of this stuff? Almost like the MMO we talked about earlier, Darkfall,
Rise of Agon.
It seems like they're doing everything everywhere all at once in their gameplay. Like, you've got all of the different influences from all of the major games, and in this game, it just looks like everything flows together so freaking well. Everything about it just looks fucking fun as shit.
Did they tone down the fireworks? Their particle effects were on their initial review were fucking awful. They were everywhere.
I sort of feel like that might have just been a bad clipped together trailer.
Maybe.
Where it was just constant, particle effects. Because this one, they showed a boss fight, and then they showed how massive the freaking world is, and they showed you how you can get around, and they showed like when I say there's everything all at once, like the bosses are gigantic, or at least some of them are. It had almost Spider-Man like web swinging, but it obviously wasn't web swinging. It was like a grappling hook type thing, but you could do it, like you could connect to the bosses and like swing around them and stuff, and it was like, this just looks fun. I'm telling you, it's like a 15-minute trailer or gameplay trailer, and it just looks so good.
I'll have to check it out.
If I'm not mistaken, I believe they got multiple like influencers and stuff to play it as well. So more footage than just what they released is available. Reports are saying that the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion remake might very well just be shadow dropped, like not even announced. They're just been like, hey, by the way, this is available now, go ahead, go buy it. And apparently next month it would be interesting.
Is this a remake or is this like, oh, we ported it to Skyrim?
That's where I'm not sure, but everything lately that's been talking about this has been calling it a remake, and so I don't know, because if it's a shadow drop, it doesn't feel like it'd be a full-on remake to me, you know?
Yeah.
Unless, I don't know. I mean, it would be weird. I think it'd be cool, but it'd be weird for them to just all of a sudden go, here's a full-on remake and it looks like a brand new game and it's amazing, all the updates we gave it, and oh yeah, you can buy it right now. Like, why wouldn't you advertise that? At least give it, a couple of months or something. We'll see if it gets real.
I'm gonna go ahead and call this now and say, based on what I'm just seeing from a quick Google search, I'm gonna say this is a HD remaster with a frame rate uncap or cap removal.
That would be my guess.
This is not going to be a remake if they're talking about shadow dropping this. This is a remaster that they're calling a remake.
Yeah, which is unfortunate. That's my expectation as well.
They're probably calling it.
Not getting my hopes up.
Yeah, they're probably calling it a remake because what they're going to do is they're going to build it in the original Skyrim engine and be like, oh, it's remade in Skyrim's engine. So it's still not going to look modern until modders do the job of Bethesda for them and make it look modern. But yeah,
I mean, if they did it in the new creation engine that Starfield's on, that'd be cool.
That would be a remake, but I doubt that they're doing that. I have a feeling this is going to be like, oh, we just rebuilt the assets in Skyrim and here you go. But I don't know. We'll see. I personally, I didn't like Oblivion personally. A lot of people loved it, but I fucking loved Morrowind, and I felt like the best part of Oblivion was literally the opening with Sir Patrick Stewart, and then the game sucked from there. That was my hot take on Oblivion personally.
Gotcha. Yeah, Oblivion was very good, but it was one of those games that it was so complex. For our age, it was harder to get into.
Yeah, maybe that was it. Maybe I was just too young. But I mean, I played Morrowind when I was younger and enjoyed the hell out of that. So I don't know. Who knows?
Fair enough. Well, anyways, let's give you my bad news before any of the good news, or any of the remaining good news, rather. Monolith Productions, the studio that made Fear and the Lord of the Rings Shadow games, the ones that, which I think this is more WB than them, but the ones that copywrote the Nemesis system that no one else can use because they copywrote that ridiculousness, they have been shut down by Warner Bros. Warner Bros. Continues to make bad decisions because Monolith was probably one of their best developers next to Rocksteady anyways.
Yeah, if I recall correctly, when we had the website, you wrote an article about Monolith Studios putting a boss in the game that was a reference to one of the team members or one of the team members' family that passed away or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah. Like they were cool people. They're
really cool people. Yep.
So it's a damn shame to hear that they got shut down. And it's even more of a shame that no one can use the Nemesis system because that was a really fun way to break your game. You could actually literally make it so you had to restart the game by just specifically going and dying to one enemy repeatedly until he literally became unbeatable.
Yep.
So it's a fun way to soft lock your game.
Yeah, they also just did some really cool stuff with that. If you made someone beat you a couple of times, but then you made it to where you could actually control them, you could then help them move up the ranks. Then you could have someone in the top ranks as an ally because you're controlling them. There's lots of really cool stuff with that system, and the fact that they copywrote that is ridiculous. Like it's almost like copywriting, FPS, first person view.
Or
It's
it's
stupid.
it's almost like filing a lawsuit because another company used a spherical device to throw at a monster to capture it, and then you tried to sue because it was this idea that you had, and that's not how trademark works. That's not how copyright works. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Pokemon,
Oh, I didn't even know I was tying you in for that one. Awesome.
yeah, no, you did. Developer Niantic, the guys behind Pokemon Go, have sold themselves. Although I would presume Nintendo has, they probably retain the rights to earn money off of this, would be my guess. But basically, Niantic has sold themselves to a Saudi Arabian owned company called Scopely. Scopely is known for mobile games like Monopoly and various other stuff. The sale actually includes Pokemon Go as well as Niantic's other games, Monster Hunter Now and Pikmin Bloom. So Nintendo is very much ingrained in this. It's interesting to see. My understanding is Niantic's team will continue to work on these games because Pokemon Go is still real popular. So my guess would be that really nothing's going to change other than the owner. It was $3.5 billion. And if I was the owner of Niantic, I'd be like, bye, guys.
Yeah. Somebody tells me they want to buy CoinDrop for $100,000. All right, shut it down. We'll open another one.
Yeah, right. That'd be my guess. Well, last two I have for you is the venerable and much lauded Power Wash Simulator is getting a sequel.
Wow, really?
We got to clean Midgar in VR, okay? So yes, much lauded. For real, though. I don't actually do that in the first one.
I don't. What does it say about the state of the world when we enjoy games where we do chores more than we enjoy doing the chores themselves? It's a question that I've like. If you like Animal Crossing, please message me because I have questions about you personally.
I'll message you after the show.
Oh, how do you like that game? All you do is chores and obtain debt. That's just life. It's just life. You are just assuming more debt and doing more chores.
To be fair, it takes me like 2 weeks real time to go from poor to gigantic mansion. So, you know, we could get off topic.
Yeah, we could.
So. The last one I have for you, the actual much lauded game, is getting a sequel. Space Marine, Warhammer Space Marine is getting, they've already announced that they're making a sequel. So we don't know much about it other than the fact that it's being made. There's no surprise whatsoever because Space Marine 2 sold millions of copies really quickly. I actually didn't look at how many, but it sold so well that they've got years worth of content planned for it. And again, they're already working on a sequel. So
yeah. I got to be honest. I think that's the only reason Embracer is able to continue production on anything because it's the only game they've published. It's the only, like, that's hyperbole, but like, it's the only game that they've published. Well, I think that. Good.
Before we continue here, they own a bajillion things.
Yes, they do.
Actually, specifically asked, what have they made? And yep, all it says, they own these games. I'm like, oh, that helps. Thanks. Yep. What have you made?
Not much. Not much.
Well, I couldn't find it quickly, so sorry for you guys. You'll have to do that research yourself.
Yes, you will. That is going to wrap it up for us tonight on the free side, guys. Thank you so much. And again, next weekend on Friday, the 21st, we will be doing our live stream game. Mike, insert that game here. Thank you for including that audio. And we will see you there. And join us over on Patreon, where we're going to talk about some stuff. And some things.
Yeah, and I know we say this every time, but help us by liking, sharing, subscribing, all that stuff. It helps more than you might imagine. So anything you can do helps. We appreciate it very much.
What's that movie? Help me, help you, help me, help you, help me, help you. What movie is that? I don't know why that line I don't know why that stuck in my head. Help us, help you. Yeah. That's where I was going with that. So
If you want more, do that to help us get bigger so we can give you more.
that's what we want to do. Tim, take us out, buddy.
Yeah. Tell your mom I said hello.
Have a great night.